Hello friends, welcome all. I am Sanyukta and today we are going to be learning another Zentangle original pattern. A pattern by Molly Hollybock, and the pattern is called Fife. Yes, it is kind of a grid based pattern, and we start with a couple of dots placed equidistant from each other, just like a square grid but without lines. Just in case you're not comfortable drawing dots like this, right, then you can with a pencil draw a rough grid and then place dots on the corners of the squares, right? But otherwise it's not required. What I'm going to do now is join these dots with rice shapes or a seed kind of shape. Right? In Zentangle terminology, this kind of shape is called a rice shape or a seed shape, or you can call it two C shapes joined together, right, facing each other. So I'm going to be joining all these dots with these C shapes, right, like this. So as I told you, you can, if you wish, use a pencil grid to start with your pattern, right? And now I'm going to rotate my tile and draw the same seed shapes vertically, right? So basically a square grid without lines, the dots joined with the seed shape, like these, right? And then what we do is again draw the same shape diagonally in all these sections that we have made, right? So each of these sections we are going to draw the same seed shape, but this time diagonally, right, joining dots diagonally by the same seed shape, like this. Right? And then the last step is again rotate your tile and join these dots with the same seed shape, but this time drawing under, right? So what I am doing is I am again diagonally drawing another seed shape, but this time using the Hollybock effect or drawing behind and not cutting across the one that I have already drawn, right, like this. So I am going to draw this all in all the sections. So I'm drawing behind, not cutting across the first diagonal C shape or seed shape or rice shape that I have drawn. I'm drawing behind, right, like this. Like this. Yes. So basically this is the outline of the pattern 5. That's F-I-F-E. And now what you can do is generally you ink this part, right? The spaces that are left here is generally inked like this, right? So this is one part of the pattern. Now what you can do is, if you don't want to color this section like this, the alternative is to draw some orbs. Again, by doing this we are creating a tangulation, adding some tipples or orbs in this section, which is generally inked, right? What you can also do is add some edge marks like these, right? so that your fife looks like petals instead of rice shape, right? So you can also add these edge marks like this, right? So the variations are unlimited. Just draw one orb like this, fill it in a bit like this, right? Use this portion to add something like this, right? So the variations that you can create are again many. Now how do we generally shade our pattern, right? So generally you add just the way I've added edge marks here. You add some graphite at the end of these rice shapes and where they are overlapping like this, right? So adding some graphite here and where they are going under, right? And then use your stump like this, right? So this is generally the way we shade, right? In case you wish, you can, if you see carefully, you have formed a kind of a flower here, right? This one, right? This looks like a flower. So you can also add edge marks to all these sides and then highlight this flower, right? So add some graphite here and highlight this flower, right? So there are various ways to go about it. I'm talking about this flower that we have formed, right? Again this one. So what I'm saying is adding some graphite here and highlight the flower instead, right? Instead of each of these sections. Like this, right? So this is the Tangle pattern 5, and we are going to use this style to draw our pattern today, right? So in front of me is again the square tile, right? And I have drawn a string here with pencil, a pencil string, and now we are going to be using these sections to draw our pattern. So let us first start with this section. I am inking. You may or may not ink it, right? The string can be seamless. It is just a suggestion, not a limitation. You can always overlook it. The tangles can cross sections created by a string. So it is up to you whether you want to ink it or you don't want to ink it. Generally a string is not inked. So what I am drawing here is, I have started with the pattern crescent moon, right? Using a couple of patterns here. The first section that I have created with this string, I am filling it up with the pattern crescent moon. I have posted this string and a couple of more strings on my Facebook page, Sanyukta Zentangle. You can have a look and give it a try. Try using some patterns along with the Tangle Fife. So I have drawn one aura, and then I am going to add probably a thicker aura, not very close to the earlier aura that I have added, something like this. Right? And then what I am going to do is aura this section. So I'm not going till the end. Instead, I'm just outlining the section that I've created inside, right? And then I'm going to add auras inside this section, like this, right? So this is another way of drawing the same pattern, auraing each moon simultaneously, or auraing the inside space that you have created by adding 1 or 2 auras to the moons, right? So I am doing the same exercise but in a different manner. I am not auraing the moon here. Instead, auraing the section that was created by adding 1 or 2 auras to the moon, right? So that's how one section we have done with crescent moon. Then we move on to our next section. What I am going to do is add some finery here, right? If you remember, we need some double line dividers here. So I am going to make this line double and then add 1 or 2 more sections here so that I can draw the pattern finery like this. And finally like this. Right? So now what we are going to do is add those slanting lines like we have inside a petal, retracing the left line a little bit and going higher up, slanting like this, right? Again, doing the same exercise from the other side. Hold the tile in such a way that you are comfortable with your hand and in drawing the lines, right? And then again the same exercise on the other side, like this. Right? And as you know, we have these small bold lines coming out of the divider when we draw the finery, like this, right, on both the sides. Like this. Right? And then the dots. You can play with the divider, you can play any way you want. Right? So we'll finally draw the pattern 5 now in the remaining section. I've added dots the way it is done in the pattern finery. right? Yeah, and then we'll draw some, as I've shown you, Tangle pattern 5. So I am drawing a grid here, right? What I was saying is, if you are not very confident of drawing these dots, that they are equidistant and they right, just draw a rough grid, right? This is just for reference, it's not required at all. It's not that the squares have to be perfect and the lines have to be equidistant, right? It is just for reference. So now going to join these, assuming that there are dots at each crossing, going to join these with this rice shape or the seed shape, right? Like this. Right. Basically, the dots are the reference point. Right, so we have drawn the lines of the seed shapes vertically. Now let us connect like this. Right, I'm drawing behind wherever required. You can see here I have left a small circle here. I'm going to leave it as it is. Just add a bit of shading, just an empty patch, right? And then the third step, the diagonal seed shape, right? Like this. So I'm going to be doing this exercise in the entire grid, right? So you can see here I have completed one set of diagonal lines. Now I'm going to rotate my tile and add the second seed shape, but this time I'm drawing under, right? So I'm not cutting across the first one that I have already drawn. I'm drawing behind, right? Like this. Right? So going to do this exercise throughout. So I have done this exercise, right? Now what I am going to do is add some big orbs. This is just a triangulation, right? like this in the empty portion that is left after drawing both the rice shapes or the seed shapes, right? Just adding these orbs. In all these sections. Right? Again, going to be doing this exercise throughout my time. So I have done the same exercise of adding orbs in all the sections, right? So this is how the pattern looks after adding orbs in all the sections. So let us now start right away shading our tile, right? If you wish, you can fill up this space, small spaces that are left with black ink, with ink, but otherwise even if you don't fill it up, it is looking nice, I think. So I would like not to fill it up, right? So let us now shade our tile. So I'm adding some graphite at the intersections in my crescent moon. Not exactly intersection, but where the lines are turning, right? So adding some graphite, the turning where the lines are turning. Right? Again the same principle, blend it but leave a highlight in between. Don't cover the entire white space. Right? So I am leaving a highlight in between, which you can re-emphasize using your white charcoal later. Right? Like this. So that's about our crescent moon. Now the best way to shade, we have already learned, finery is adding some graphite on both sides of the dividing line. Right? By now we have drawn finery a couple of times already. So I am doing the same exercise, adding some graphite on both sides of the dividers that I have drawn. Right? Let us now blend it. Again the same principle, pull the graphite from the corner to the center, plus leave a highlight in between, don't cover the entire thing. Right? You don't want the entire petal shape to look grey. It's interesting to see how Maria uses her pencil and the stump. Zentangle, they have never used the tip of the stump or the pencil to add or graphite or to shade, right? They always use the edges and never the tip to shade, right? So that's about finery. And for this section, I'm not going into shading each and every section of my five. I'm going to be shading my tangle as a whole. By now you already understand what is the pillow effect and shading the tangle as a whole, right? I'm not going into individual elements of the tangle, shading each and every section, no. I'm adding some thick graphite at the corners. I'm going to blend it and leave a highlight in the center. And as far as this part is concerned, adding some thick graphite on one side like this, right? Just going to pull it to the other side, right, like this. Add a kind of a darker outline here. Like this, right? I've left a highlight. If you can see, I've not completely covered the orb, left a portion, right, like this. I'm going to leave it like this and then come to shading my five. Almost covered the entire thing. Just left portion in the center as a highlight. Right. So now pick up your white charcoal. Add some highlight to your crescent moons in the center where you have not added graphite. Right? And then in the center portion of the finery, like this, and then here right, you can use a stump to brush off the excess chalk, right, some white chalk here, a touch of highlight here, probably something like this, right? So this is how our tile looks after shading. And the final touch, right? Right. So take a moment to appreciate your tile. Initial your tile right? Sign and date it. Sign and date it. So today is 14th of September, right? So we'll meet again next time with one more Zentangle original pattern. Till then, have a good time. Bye bye.